Step right up, folks, and feast your eyes on a collection of vintage photographs that reveal the untold story of the early 20th century traveling circus. These rare and remarkable images capture a world that's rarely seen in the history books, a world of daring performers, exotic animals, and shocking behind-the-scenes realities that will leave you breathless. Today, we'll take you on a journey through the fascinating and often troubling history of the American circus, using photographs that were never meant for public consumption. The birth of the American circus. The roots of the American circus can be traced back to the late 18th century, when equestrian shows featuring skilled horseback riders performing tricks and stunts gained popularity. These shows, known as horse ballets, were often performed in open-air arenas or wooden structures. As the country expanded westward in the early 19th century, the circus evolved to include a wider variety of acts, such as acrobats, jugglers, and clowns, to appeal to a broader audience. One of the pioneering figures in the early American circus was John Bill Ricketts, an English equestrian who brought his show to the U.S. in 1792. Ricketts established the first circus building in Philadelphia, which President George Washington reportedly visited. Other early circus entrepreneurs included Victor Pepin, a Frenchman who toured the northeastern U.S. and Canada with his Circus of Pepin and Brichard. Hakalia Bailey first introduced the elephant to the American circus in 1808. In 1825, Joshua Purdy Brown revolutionized the American circus by introducing the canvas tent, or big top, which allowed shows to move more easily from town to town. This innovation made it possible for circuses to reach a wider audience and paved the way for the traveling circus to become a staple of American entertainment. P.T. Barnum and the Greatest Show on Earth. P.T. Barnum, often referred to as the Prince of Humbugs, was a master showman who transformed the American circus into a larger-than-life spectacle. Born in 1810 in Bethel, Connecticut, Barnum began his career as a traveling showman, exhibiting various hoaxes and curiosities, such as the Fiji mermaid, a fake mermaid made from the torso of a monkey sewn to the tail of a fish, and Joice Heth, a blind and paralyzed slave woman whom he claimed was George Washington's 161-year-old former nurse. In 1841, Barnum purchased Scudder's American Museum in New York City and transformed it into a popular attraction, featuring a mix of genuine artifacts and sensational hoaxes. He later partnered with James A. Bailey and James L. Hutchinson to create P.T. Barnum's Grand Traveling Museum, Menagerie, Caravan, and Circus, which debuted in 1871. The show is notable for its use of the railroad to transport the circus from town to town. Barnum's keen understanding of publicity and marketing helped make his circus a massive success. He employed a variety of techniques to generate buzz, such as parading elephants through the streets of New York City and hosting elaborate press events. His partnership with Bailey and Hutchinson laid the groundwork for the modern American circus and set the stage for the Ringling Brothers' rise to prominence. The Ringling Brothers Era. The Ringling Brothers, consisting of Albert, Otto, Alfred, Charles, and John, were born in McGregor, Iowa, to German immigrant parents. They started their circus in 1884 in Barberoo, Wisconsin, as a small, family-run operation. Over time, they grew their show by acquiring other circuses and expanding their roster of performers and animals. In 1895, the Ringling Brothers made a bold move by purchasing the Barnum and Bailey Circus for $410,000, equivalent to approximately $13 million today. The acquisition made them the largest circus company in the world. After the death of James A. Bailey in 1906 and Otto Ringling in 1911, the remaining Ringling Brothers fully merged the two circuses in 1919, creating the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus, the greatest show on earth. Under the leadership of the Ringling Brothers, the circus reached new heights of popularity and spectacle in the early 20th century. They introduced the Big Top, a massive tent that could seat up to 16,000 people, and the three-ring format, which allowed for multiple acts to perform simultaneously. The circus also featured an extensive menagerie of exotic animals, including elephants, lions, tigers, and bears, as well as human oddities in the sideshow. Their success was due in part to their savvy business practices and ability to adapt to changing times. They were among the first to use the railroad to transport their show, and they were quick to embrace new technologies like electric lighting and motorized vehicles. They also recognized the importance of marketing and advertising, using colorful posters, billboards, and newspaper ads to promote the show. Despite their success, Ringling Brothers faced numerous challenges throughout their tenure, including labor disputes, animal welfare concerns, and the emergence of new forms of entertainment like motion pictures and radio. Controversies and Challenges.
So hurry, look 'em over the lady without a head. There are thin ones, there are fat ones, they're all inside. Zip and Pip the pin-headed people. A sample of the marvelous freaks you'll see for the price of a small thin dime.
Life under the big top was not all glamour and glory. The early 20th century circus was a reflection of the times. One of the most notorious aspects of the early circus was the sideshow, where human oddities were put on display for the amusement of paying customers. These performers, many of whom had physical disabilities or unusual appearances, were often exploited and mistreated by circus management. It was a stark reminder of the attitudes towards disability that prevailed in American society at the time. Animal welfare was another area where the early circus fell short. Elephants, lions, tigers, and other exotic animals were often subjected to cruel training methods and kept in cramped, unsanitary conditions. Many animals died prematurely due to neglect and mistreatment, and accidents involving animals were not uncommon. The circus was also a reflection of the racial attitudes of the time. African American performers were often relegated to less prominent roles and paid less than white counterparts. Disasters and Tragedies. The early 20th century circus was also marked by a number of high-profile disasters and tragedies. In 1918, a train carrying the Hagenbeck-Wallace Circus was involved in a horrific crash near Hammond, Indiana, killing 86 circus performers and workers. It remains one of the worst train disasters in American history. Perhaps the most infamous circus disaster occurred in 1944 when a fire broke out during a Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey show in Hartford, Connecticut. The fire, which was caused by a carelessly discarded cigarette, quickly engulfed the big top, trapping thousands of spectators inside. In the end, 168 people died and over 700 were injured, making it one of the deadliest fires in American history. In the wake of the tragedy, new safety regulations were put in place, and the use of flammable materials in circus tents was banned. The decline of the traveling circus. As the 20th century progressed, the American traveling circus began to lose its luster. The rise of new forms of entertainment meant that audiences had more options for leisure time, and the circus was facing increasing criticism from animal rights activists who accused the industry of cruelty and neglect. Many circuses began to phase out animal acts altogether, focusing instead on human performers. Others tried to adapt to changing times by incorporating new technologies and special effects. In 2017, after 146 years in operation, the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus held its final performance. The closure of the greatest show on earth marked the end of an era for the American circus and served as a reminder of how much the world had changed since the days of P.T. Barnum and the Ringling Brothers. Now it's time to hear from you. What are your thoughts on the early circus? Let us know in the comments section below.